There's very little that we do know about the Druids, but what we do know comes from those classical writers at the time, such as Strabo, Posidonius, and Lucan and Tacitus, and Julius Caesar. And today, I thought we'd take a look at what Julius Caesar had to say about the Druids in his commentaries on the Gallic Wars. Caesar's Gaelic war commentaries are divided into 8 books, but only 7 were written by Caesar himself. And the particular book that we're interested in regards to the Druids, is Book 6, which is called Operations Near the Rhine. And the chapter that we're interested in that book is one called Customs and Institutions of the Gauls. And in this chapter, he talks at quite great length about the Druids. So let's dig in and see what he's got to say. Now, in this first chapter, he gives us a bit of an overview into Celtic society. And he tells us that there are only 2 classes in Celtic society that are worth any note at all. The common people, we're told, have pretty much no status, and they attach themselves to those of a more noble rank, and Caesar pretty much equates them to slaves. He tells us that the 2 elite classes of Celtic society are that of the knights and the Druids. Now, perhaps there's something being lost in translation here, or Caesar's being a bit harsh, because we do know that within the Celtic society there were some well-respected craftsmen, and there were the farmers, and they were very important to Celtic society. So perhaps what he's really trying to tell us is that these people, these craftsmen and farmers, they had no say in the governing of Celtic society and were totally dictated to by the nobles within the tribe. And he goes on further to tell us that they are the ones that officiate at religious ceremonies, but they are also the judges of Celtic society, and they are the ones that resolve any disputes. So they're the Celtic priesthood, and they're also judge and jury. Then we're told that anyone failing to accept their rulings will be, well, in today's terms, we'd say excommunicated and denied their spiritual rights. And they would be shunned by society and treated like criminals. And this is the worst price and penalty that could be inflicted upon them. So if any individual or any tribe was not to adhere to Druidic ruling, then they would be treated as unclean and denied justice and any rights and entitlements they would normally be accustomed to. Insofar as how the Druids are organised, we're told that there is one chief Druid, and he is chief Druid until his death. At his demise, then, if there's an obvious successor or a named successor, then he takes his place. Otherwise, the head Druid is elected. But we're also told that if there's disagreement, that sometimes they'll fight it out. Now, coming back to the governing role of the Druids again, we're told there's a sacred spot in the country of the Carnutes, and every year on a fixed date, the Druids meet at this spot to hand out their judgments. and those involved in disputes travel here from all parts of Gaul to receive the ruling of the Druids. We're then told that the Druidic doctrine initially existed in Britain and it was imported into Gaul. And those that wish to undergo advanced study go to Britain for teaching. Now there's some great advantages to being a Druid, apart from the obvious status that you acquire. You were exempt from military service and you didn't have to pay taxes. But study was difficult, and Caesar tells us that everything had to be memorized, nothing written down, and you could expect to spend up to 20 years memorizing and learning all the Druidic lore. And he tells us that writing down any of the teachings was strictly forbidden. And that's because they didn't want any of the teachings becoming public knowledge. But then for other purposes, we're told that they did actually have a writing system, and the writing system they used for public and personal notes was that of the Greek alphabet. So what did the Druids believe in regards to life after death? Well, they believed in reincarnation and that the soul would travel after death to a new body to be reborn again. And this belief gave the Celts that fighting spirit which made them unafraid of death. And as Caesar tells us here, this is a great incentive for bravery as it teaches men to disregard the terrors of death. But there's still one big question left. With all these 20 years of teaching, what is it that they actually learned? So we're told that the Druids, for the most part, studied the size of the universe and the cosmos and the workings of the earth and the powers and the properties of the gods. And these are the things that the Druids taught to their young students. So that's part 1 of Julius Caesar's narratives about the Druids. Now, there's plenty more to come, but I've decided I'll split it into 2 parts. And so, on the next episode, we'll do part 2 of Julius Caesar's narratives. And in that episode, we'll talk more about the gods and the beliefs of the Druids. So, give us a thumbs up if you've liked today's content, and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more. And with that, I'll see you again very soon on the next episode, Julius Caesar's narratives about the Druids, part 2.